This marks the beginning for an at least two-part series about the arguments for God-centered morality versus arguments for other foundations of morality, hopefully addressing one of the worst claims about atheists or even rationalistic naturalists. They lack basis for morality. First question is, why are we moral? This question is far-reaching and is not easy to answer, even in the 15 minutes YouTube allows. For the sake of argument, let us consider only the view of divine command theory, that all morality comes from God, and objective views of morality not based on God. This video series will present evidence for two possible claims. Claim 1. God, or the deity, Buddha, Krishna, Abraham, Joseph Smith, take your pick, are the only definitive source of morality for humanity, and subsequently all views they express are automatic moral law. Point 2. Morals have existed since humans coalesced into social groups. Altruism governs this morality, which exists to this day. This view may be objective or subjective. Please note, it is important to realize that not all objective claims on morality are contingent upon the existence of a creator, no matter what Banana Man will try and convince you of. There are systems like utilitarianism and Kantian principle-based non-consequentialism that offer objective views of morality without the need for intervention by a supreme being. Objective means that the view of morality isn't subject to the interpretation of the individual, that there is a set rubric for determining morality, and as a consequence, humans have the capacity to act immorally. Part 1. Origins and Moral Landscape of Monotheism. For the purposes of this video, we will only consider divine command theory in the frame of Western monotheistic Christianity, mostly because this is the dominant religion in the West, but also because it seems that all the anti-intellectual maniacs seem to come from this particular camp. Monotheism begins with the premise that one God exists to the exclusion of all others. It was developed out of a combination of henotheism, worship of one God while accepting the possibility of the existence of other gods, and monolatrism, the recognition of many gods but only really caring about one. By only focusing and acknowledging the existence of one God, monotheism fixes problems inherent in polytheism while escaping the emptiness of pantheism or other systems in which it would be hard to draw any conclusions about morality. Taken from Creation Wiki, my only source for grade A bullshit, the biblical creationist worldview holds to the concept of natural law, that is, that codes of morality are absolute because they are established by God and conform to reason. More on this particular phrase later. Actions are not good or bad because of their effectiveness at permitting reproduction, but they are absolutely and objectively right or wrong. So, according to the monotheists, point 1. God ordains laws, the application of which are always correct in any situation. Point 2. Because actions are objectively right or wrong, we should be able to find uniformity in how humans, born with this one interpretation of morality, act in the moral sphere. Point 3. If humans act contrary to these laws, the outcomes must be recognized by other persons to be immoral in order for objective morality to exist. The converse is also true. Point 4. God, being the lawgiver, must also follow these rules and moral laws in every situation. To do otherwise and condemn humans for disobeying would be hypocritical, not a characteristic of a perfect God. For this argument, we will assume that the Bible is literally true. This is because in order to base any system of morality, we must know that the assumption on which the system is based is literally true. If the Bible is merely poetry, not meant to be taken literally in some situations, we cannot know which laws are suggestions and which are imperative to follow. Morality then becomes subjective, given to the personal interpretations of the Bible. In order for morality to be objective, the Bible must be taken to be literally true in all instances. We will also assume that the Bible was written as directed by God. Christians use the term inspired, but what they really mean was that the Bible was God-breathed, whatever the hell that means. Regardless, I don't think you can be a monotheistic Christian if you don't think the Bible is the Word of God. For the instances of pieces of evidence I will use, read Donald Morgan's essay, Bible Atrocities, link in the description below. This whole argument is easily disproven. Being bound by his own moral laws, can we find an instance where God strays from the moral path? Indeed we can. Case 1. In Genesis 6 and 7, we find that God commits mass genocide and kills every being on earth, including all non-sentient beings, for the sins of one species, Homo sapiens. Case 2. When invading Jericho, as instructed by God, the Jews annihilated with the sword everything that breathed in the city, including men and women, young and old, as well as cattle, sheep, and donkeys. Joshua chapter 6. Case 3. When taking the town of Ai, as instructed by God, the Jews annihilated all who lived in Ai, including all of the men, women, and children. Joshua chapter 8. In regards to case 1, let us find a case in human history where mass genocide is condemned on moral grounds by all people across cultures. There are several instances, but the most poignant is the Holocaust, where officials in the government of Nazi Germany during the 1930s and 40s selectively exterminated Jews, homosexuals, gypsies, and all others considered inferior to the Aryan way of life. Subsequent investigation, after the Allied forces defeated Germany in 1945, revealed the atrocities of the internment camps like those in Dachau and Auschwitz, to near universal condemnation and fury. The leaders and perpetrators of these atrocities, even some of the more brutal prison guards, were sentenced and hanged after a lengthy series of war crimes trials held in Nuremberg. This episode is still considered one of the worst atrocities in human history. What would the God of the Old Testament have to say about this? Christians would be up in arms, defending the sanctity of the God, claiming he would never support the atrocities of Nazi Germany. But they would be hypocritical in this stance. The flood of Noah was on a completely separate scale. God wiped out the bulk of humanity and thousands, if not millions, of other lives, simply because he found nothing good about the people he had made 5 chapters earlier. But let us consider how God would act if he were a person. God, at the slightest provocation, would instantly eliminate vast sums of people for ideological reasons, not unlike Hitler. And yet it is easy for Christians to denounce Hitler. Odd, ain't it? It seems that God represents the worst forms of racism, sexism, and immorality in general, contrary to his claims that he is all-powerful and the fountain of morality. In cases 2 and 3, we have instances of God not perpetrating murder/infanticide, but directing humans from his fluffy perch to do the killing for him. From history, we see the examples of famous contract killers like Al Capone, Bonnie and Clyde, among others. Regarded as heroes during their time, they are now seen as extortionist, hedonistic thugs thriving on an insane prohibition of alcohol. These gangsters rarely killed people themselves, but would often contract lower-rank thugs to do their dirty work for them, mostly to avoid legal culpability. This does not exempt them from the moral culpability of their time, an example of the reverse Nuremberg defense even before World War II. They are still responsible for the deaths of the people they contracted to kill, regardless of whether they actually did the killing or not. So it seems God cannot be trusted to tell us what is moral. He is worse by far than the average human, and seems to possess no conscience or sense of moral decency. His disorder, it seems, may even be psychopathic. Points 2 and 3 are really the same point. They deal with the area of expected data. They make this simple claim. If all morality stemmed from one source, we would expect to see uniformity in all moral sentiments, especially in the areas of murder, rape, incest, adultery, bestiality, pedophilia, and genocide. However, there are cultures across the globe that have different standards on these issues. As an example, tribes of the Pacific Island nations, the natives on those islands have developed forms of ritualistic murder, often as a result of a death of a family member, practice commonly referred to in the West as headhunting. This practice was outlawed by Christian missionaries when the islands were first colonized, leading to a dramatic spike in the rate of suicide, where previously suicide was considered rare at best. Even with Christian society, sexual norms have not always remained consistent. The right of prima nocta during the Dark Ages granted the right of first intercourse to a peasant's feudal lord, even before the husband had the opportunity to tap that. Historians are not sure whether some feudal lords even had the decency to make it a threesome. Along the way, we have already proven point 4. God said not to kill people, but subsequently forgot those rules when the situation wasn't in his favor. This represents a hypocrisy on God's part, something God is incapable of, leading to a logical contradiction. God, then, is either a supreme liar or a whiny teenager looking for contradiction. But you may ask, without God, where do we base our morality? That is a subject for the next video. Ratings and comments are greatly appreciated. All comments are set to automatic approval. Thanks for watching.